Welcome to Withdraw Consent. I'm Victor. This is Jack. Our last episode, which you can view, link is right here. You can. We talked about the what we defined as the system, and for today, my question is: we have to have government. Why? Why is this one actually so bad? Life seems good. What's the issue?
Okay. Well, I'm not saying that it is bad to have a government, even though most governments are bad. I'm not an anarchist, but an anarchist would disagree. But the question is, what is the system doing to aid us or hurt us? And so if you had a benevolent system that was all working together to increase the prosperity and happiness of the American people, I wouldn't really be complaining much. I would still be pointing out that there's a system and they're working together and it's not really the people you elect, which is kind of what we want it to be. You know, we want to think that the people we have, because we want to think that we have some power. If we go with the system, then the people have no power. They're electing people to have the power who don't actually have the power, you know? So I would say it becomes a problem when, as we touched on in the last video, everything the system's doing is working against the best interest of the people. We mostly said that in regard to the uniparty, but it also holds true for the system itself. So in order to prove that, I would say that the system is not following the Constitution. So we have the Constitution in place as a document which protects us from the government. It doesn't protect us from each other, just protects us from the government. If I'm right that the system is no longer following the Constitution, then it's just basically reduced to a piece of toilet paper, you know, and all of our protections are gone. So if I said that the system wasn't following the Constitution, I would say the Constitution lays out clearly some things that the government can and cannot do, right? And so one of the things is that Congress must vote if we are going to go to war, right? This happened in 1942. You know, there was Pearl Harbor. Quickly, Congress just votes and we go to war. Since then, we have not gone to war. Ish.
I feel like we've been in a lot of wars, though.
You would think so, but they weren't wars. They were engagements. They were something. But see, they were wars. But at one point, it just became like, okay, you know, let's just stop voting to see if we should go to war.
So who's deciding that we go to war then?
All of DC.
But unofficially, or like how did that happen? There's no vote.
Yeah, they just move us that direction, though. Just everybody's moving in the same direction.
Just deploy troops and we're just going to do this?
You do what you want. Yeah, start with some executive orders bombing, you know, the president says to. But I'm saying all of this stuff is very unconstitutional. And so I even saw on a podcast, there was this New Yorker on there, and he was saying to even talk about whether or not we should vote, Congress should vote to go to war is passe because we haven't been doing that for so long. But when you take that type of mentality, you're undermining the entire Constitution, because if they don't have to vote to go to war, then First Amendment, Second Amendment, Third, Fourth, Fifth, you know what I mean? Are they Third Amendment? Are they housing troops in your home with no, you know what I'm saying?
So it's a slippery slope is what you're saying.
Yeah. The answer is the American people do not want the government to not follow one part of the Constitution, because once they do, it just, the dam breaks open.
Okay.
And so you start to look like, say we're talking about recent days, right? You look at whether or not the government is protecting our constitutional rights or if they're violating them. You look in regards to the First Amendment, they did the shutdowns. We've talked about them many times, but they did the lockdowns, and they sent people with guns to lock down businesses owned by American citizens. If the business was owned by a corporation, which is much more important than American citizens, obviously, they were allowed to stay open. And people protested, or not even that, not a lot, but there was like the Atlas gym guy who just kept opening and getting fined and stuff. And everybody knows everything's going on is unconstitutional. The police don't have any problems doing unconstitutional things. We spoke about that in another video about Back in the Blue. And so you see countrywide, almost, I believe there was one state that didn't lock down. South Carolina, South Dakota? It was one of the South
Dakota, I think.
Yeah, South Dakota. Okay. And so in 49 states, First Amendment was violated for small business owners, but not for corporations. We're not even talking about small scale examples I'm giving. This is huge, you know? You look at the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment says that the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, right? All gun control is infringing on your right to keep and bear arms, right?
Okay. Even like felons, like dangerous people should be allowed to have guns?
Okay. If you were to assert that that's true,
Okay.
and it may or may not be true, then what you're saying is we need to allow felons to buy guns,
Okay.
and we need to put forth a constitutional amendment to change the Second Amendment to say, except for felons. Because you either
Okay.
follow the Constitution or you don't. And what your suggestion is not following the Constitution.
And so it's kind of the slippery slope that you mentioned before.
Right.
We're slowly, it's this,
Right.
this amount is okay. Now this amount, and we just keep.
And then we say, hey, I mean, if you're mentally incompetent, you shouldn't, or maybe if you're suicidal, maybe if you're on antidepressants, but that's not what the Constitution says.
Or if a neighbor thinks you're unstable.
Oh, red flag
Right.
immediately.
Okay. So we're way down the slope when it comes to the Second Amendment.
Right. And all gun control is unconstitutional. Like if you say, hey, there's a waiting period and there's a woman getting stalked, this happened. You know, a woman was getting stalked, she went for the gun. They said, hey, waiting period. Didn't have a gun when he came, you know? And I'm not even arguing about whether these gun control laws are good ideas or bad ideas. They're just unconstitutional. I'm not saying guns are good or bad. They're just gun control laws are unconstitutional.
It's unlawful unless we change the laws. They're unlawful. Is the point
The
we're
laws
trying
are
to make.
unconstitutional.
Right.
Right. Even if you like the laws and say, hey, that's sensible gun control, it's unconstitutional.
They're going about it the wrong way.
Right. And if you do support gun control, then you are supporting the slippery slope of the government not following the Constitution.
Or not changing it to get your gun control.
Right. Because you know you can't, because the requirements to change it, but that doesn't mean you should undermine it.
Right.
Because you might care about the First Amendment, not care about the Second Amendment, then undermine the Second Amendment and slippery slope the First Amendment.
Right.
You know, if we go out to the Fourth Amendment, which is search and seizure and privacy, you see things like Snowden. Snowden whistleblew, which America's great at prosecuting whistleblowers. No protections, even though there's laws on the
They
books.
claim lots of protections.
Oh yeah, claim them. Yeah. And this is both sides. This is Obama was scary how bad he was at prosecuting whistleblowers. Trump came in and just kept going with the playbook, you know? So like this guy,
Which guy?
Snowden,
Okay.
Edward Snowden, he worked for the NSA and he whistleblew and gave the documentation to, I believe, WikiLeaks. And it showed that America had been illegally spying on its citizens through the Patriot Act. And so this is a violation of your Fourth Amendment right to privacy. And it went so bad for him that he ended up in hiding in Russia so he could be more free and safe than living in the United States.
Just for telling the truth.
Oh, for telling the truth about the government doing something bad and bringing all of the evidence of it. So that's where we're at with the Fourth Amendment. You know, like and if you have a phone and you think that nobody's watching you, okay, you know, we don't even have to go there. So then you go out to like the Fifth Amendment, right? Due process.
Okay.
Basically, everybody should be treated fairly under the law, and then there's a process of how things should go. No matter what side you're on, if you're even on a side, but whatever views you have, you can look at somebody with an opposing view and you can say, hey, these people are crap. These people should be in jail. You know, you could be looking at Hillary Clinton and the servers and all of that. You could be looking at the Epstein and then the client list. You know that Bill Clinton was on that list. It wasn't just Democrats on that list, you know, but then Ghislaine Maxwell gets prosecuted and
Found guilty.
And not one person on her client list. She sex trafficked no one. And then you look at the Summer of Love, the 2020 riots and stuff with the Black Lives Matter and this and that. And you look, no matter what side you're on, you could be on the side of law and order and you could say, hey, these people were rioting, burning cities, and they just weren't prosecuted. And they weren't. You could be on the Black Lives Matter side and say, hey, look at all these police officers systematically discriminated against black people and they never get arrested. You know, it took George Floyd to get one officer arrested, you know what I mean? And convicted, but basically they don't often go to jail.
Right.
And so no matter what side you're on, you're not confident in the government giving you your rights to due process or giving people in society, not you, because I'm not saying that you or I are the criminals, but we want to see whatever side you're on, the people who are corrupt and do bad things get prosecuted.
And that no one's above the law. We want to see the
Right.
people in charge treated just like I would be for the same crime.
Right. I agree. So in all of these ways, having a system that has control over all these facets, like we were talking about in the previous video, is not necessarily a bad thing. If they're using that power that they have to increase the happiness and prosperity of American citizens, we would have nothing to complain about. We just
Okay.
wouldn't care. Even if they were corruptly profiting illegally on the side, we really wouldn't care that much, honestly, if it was, proportionate. I'm not encouraging that, but I'm just saying, like, we
Right.
wouldn't really care. But you look at what's happening, and they're working together to not follow the Constitution. It's the disinterest of the American people. And so for that reason, I say that the system we have in place that controls Americans is bad. And you made the statement before, you said, well, life's not too bad. Everything is going kind of good. It depends if you're stuck in one of these situations.
Okay.
Are you the guy who had your gym shut down? Because life's not good for you. There's people with guns coming, giving you hundreds of thousands of dollars of fines because you're just trying to open your business. It's not like the government's compensating you for your, well, they did do some compensations, but I'm saying they're not fully covering everything. And based on how many people lost their businesses, the government filled in the gap real good. So I'm saying having a system the system we have cannot be a great thing.
Okay. Thank you for watching the video today. Please like and subscribe. We appreciate that. We also appreciate any of interactions through the comment section. Feel free to challenge us on any of the points that we made here. The best, most logical arguments, even if you disagree with us, will be pinned at the top. Maybe you're going down the rabbit hole and you're totally on board with this. Maybe you know someone who's kind of with you and could really use this information and would help them on their journey. Please share it with them. We'll see you next time. Thank you.